Hey everyone, Teen off the Noah Barfield here, and welcome to Writer's Corner. Alright, so Halloween is over. Are you okay? Are you coping with that? I'm doing fine, thanks for asking. I'm actually really excited for Thanksgiving now that Halloween is over. That's right, Thanksgiving, not Christmas, because Thanksgiving isn't even over yet, so I'm not excited for Christmas until it is, you bunch of weirdos.
But Noah, come on, what are we gonna be talking about here? What's really the topic?
Okay, so the topic for today was actually a request before I started doing all of my busy stuff, before I started remaking all my old YouTube videos, before my Halloween special, before all of that, this was a request. But I already planned those videos. I'm trying to be more organized. I mean, like, look, I got stuff, I got a plan and everything. I'm trying to be more organized and scheduled, so I wasn't willing to break that, but now I am. So, what's the topic for today? The topic is gonna be writing conflict. Yay! War, violence, angst, arguing, all that fun stuff. Yeah, all that fun stuff. We'll be talking about writing conflict today. And of course, there are lots of different types of conflicts. Person versus person, person versus nature, person versus indescribable entity from the beyond. Oh my god! But I won't be covering any of those today. I'll be talking about the two main ones, internal and external conflict. Internal conflict is what happens in here. It's all of the angst that your character goes through. It's the values that they try and reconcile with themselves, the morals that they think make sense. It's all of the things that are brought into doubt with them that they have to overcome mentally and emotionally to be able to get through all of the stuff that you throw at them. External conflict, on the other hand, is the nightmarish hellscape that you throw your characters into and you say, suffer, in every physical way imaginable. So, to recap, internal conflict is whenever your characters are beating themselves up. External conflict is whenever you're beating your characters up. But I know you didn't just come here for some definitions. No, you also watch my videos for the tips, and of course my shining personality. So how do you create conflict? Internal, external, how do you just make conflict? Well, it's actually pretty easy. You create one character who has values that they strongly believe in, another character that has values they strongly believe in, and then you make them clash. But seriously, that is the basic premise of how you create conflict, having values that don't exactly mesh well together, that are brought into conflict with each other. We actually deal with this more than we care to admit, even within ourselves. Most people think that yes, the value of attaining wealth is an admirable one, and you should do good things with it. On the other hand, they also believe that charity is a good thing, and those two things can sometimes come in direct conflict with each other. Someone who values wealth a lot but also has this intrinsic desire to do good with charity is going to be conflicted about giving away what they've earned and worked hard for to people who don't have anything, but then they'll have less to be able to make possibly their family happy. So it's this give and take, and we struggle with that all the time. Ultimately, we have to think what we do is right and the set of values that we hold strongest rather than just all of the ones. So that's what you're going to want to be focusing on for your characters. Yes, your characters are going to have sets of values, things that they believe in, things that adhere to their moral code if that's something that you decide to write into your characters. I mean, morality. What? But your character is really going to have 1 to maybe 5 values that they really feel strongly about. So you're not going to want to be talking about all of your character's values, just the ones that really matter. And this brings us to our first tip: give your character values. I know we've been talking about this for a while, but give your characters values that they not only believe in, but are willing to defend and can be easily conflicted by someone else's values, or a facet of which might be unappealing. For instance, most people here in America have the value of freedom. That's something that we regard very highly. However, we do not so highly regard the value of the freedom to murder other people. That's actually something that we punish. However, imagine, if you will, another character who is the antagonist of the story, but wants to conquer the world not because they're insane, maybe a little bit, but not mostly because they're insane, but because they want to give everyone total security. You have to give your characters values that they not only can really get behind and feel strongly about, but that also might have unappealing facets of them, or that other people can actually resist, and their resistance to these ideas and values makes sense. Now, speaking of resisting values, this brings us to our second tip. Give your antagonist values, and not just values that
Oh, I love murder, and that's something that I value.
give them values that we understand. Voldemort had values of purity, he had values of intelligence, of strength, of power. These are things that we can all understand. Maybe we don't agree with all of them, but we at least understand where he's coming from and why he got to this point. Giving your antagonist values that we might be able to hypothetically get behind just creates an interesting scenario that allows for far more interesting conflict to arise rather than just, you're bad, I need to stop. Whenever you create interesting values, it makes us much more invested in your characters and in the scenario you're painting. So my third tip, shifting away from values here, make it super uncomfortable. What I mean by that is that naturally we try and break bad news to people in the most comfortable of settings whenever it's not going to naturally upset them. Whenever you're having a big conflict, whether it's verbal, physical, emotional, or mental, make it super uncomfortable. Make your character struggle through the most intrinsic values they hold dear, I don't know, while they're at their mother's funeral. Or maybe whenever they're thinking about it and they walk in on one of their friends sleeping with some of their other friends. Make it extremely uncomfortable and make it to where they just don't really know what to do no matter what situation they're in. Now, my fourth tip, which is really great for character development and also plot development as well, is have your main character's values questioned by the supporting cast. Meaning, oh, okay, the main character values security. Well, have this other character question, what are you really going to do to make us secure? What are the lengths to which you will go to secure the galaxy from this alien threat? Lockdowns? Interrogation? I don't even recognize you anymore. Why are you doing this? You aren't the person that I joined and enlisted with. Who are you? What have you done with my best friend? These are the kinds of things that can easily spiral out of hand, which is one of the reasons why you want to give your main character and antagonist values that can be easily contrasted or facets of which we can disagree with. Now, my last tip, and perhaps the most important, is make sure that these drive the plot. Make sure that the conflict drives the plot forward. The difference between something that is unfortunate and a conflict is that something unfortunate doesn't really drive the story forward. It's just a sad moment, an uncomfortable moment. Conflict is what is something that's going to drive the story forward, and it's going to have contrasting views of it. It's going to make it more of a big deal. So whenever you're planning out conflict, in addition to all of the things I've said, keep in mind and ask yourself this question: how is it going to drive my characters and plot forward? Now, I think that's all the tips I have for you today, but whenever you're thinking about creating conflict, the goal of it is to get an emotional response from people. It's to showcase all of the interesting sides of your story and the scenario you set up, and to get an emotional reaction from it out of your readers. That's always going to be the goal here. Not just the relatability, not just, oh, this is interesting, but getting an emotional response from your readers. So think to yourself, what kind of conflicts get an emotional rise out of me? What things happen, what two contrasting things happen that make me feel all of these emotions? What gets an emotional rise out of you? Here is the part where I blatantly brag about my book. My novel, Legendland, this fantastic piece of fiction right here, is available on a plethora of places. You can get it on barnesandnoble.com, Smashwords, iTunes, Amazon, my publisher's website, a whole host of places, and you can also get it on my website, www.arc-storm.com. Whenever you order a copy off of ArcStorm, I will personally sign it for you because I love doing that, and I've been working on my signatures recently. If you feel like following me, which of course you do, you can do so on Facebook, Twitter, don't forget to subscribe, or just leave a comment below. If you want to send me a longer, more in-depth explanation of your story, or you just want my advice on something, I have a contact form on ArcStorm. Feel free to use it and get in touch with me. I hope that this has been helpful and that you continue to enjoy.